Welcome to D&D Out Loud with Ben Riggs. I am Ben Riggs, apparently controversial D&D historian and author of Slaying the Dragon, A Secret History of Dungeons and Dragons. And over the past 13 years of writing and podcasting, I have met hundreds of creative geniuses in and around the world of tabletop role-playing games. Here on this show, today I have asked one of these flaming torches of the human imagination to come on and have a fascinating discussion, which I then record and send out into the world. Today, we have Pawel Kicman with us from Krakow, Poland, and he is up for an ENnie for Best Short Form Adventure for Whispers of the Woods. Welcome, Pawel.
Hello. Thank you for having me, Ben.
So let's start with the easy and the obvious. What's Whispers of the Woods, and why is it awesome?
Oh gosh, it is. Yeah, as you mentioned, it was nominated to my huge surprise. One of the two nominations for ENnies actually, but yeah, very surprising one. So Whispers of the Woods is basically a very different game than anything I've done and anything that most people probably interacted with in a TTRPG space. I'm not saying like it's super unique, but I really wanted to make something different. So it's a very minimalist game with very little rules, a lot of flavor, which was designed to be played natively GM-less and solo, as well as with the group. And so basically the whole premise of the game is that you don't play as heroes or anyone special. You play as normal villagers somewhere in the kind of 18th century. It doesn't really matter when exactly or where. It's best to be left ambiguous or for the player's discretion or GM's discretion. And the whole gist is that you go into the woods for many different reasons. We have a lot of different random tables to support that kind of those narrative choices of why, when, where. And you go into the woods, and the woods are weird. The woods are strange, and the woods are ever shifting. So the whole thing is for the villagers to go through different hexes to maybe reach their destination, to interact with the world around them in many different ways, and to collaboratively tell the story. And that kind of collaboration element is very crucial to the essence of Whispers of the Woods, because unlike most standard games, you don't really roll for your action alone, and you don't have a GM who's describing what you've done in the game. The core mechanic of Whispers of the Woods is that people roll the dice all together, and they sum up the results, and then they figure out how they want to tackle the overarching narrative of the scene. So yeah, that's basically Whispers of the Woods in less than 2 minutes, maybe 3 minutes. There's probably much more than I could tell you about the game, but that's the gist.
And the default setting is, quote, somewhere in Central Europe during the 18th century. Is that right?
Yes, more or less. Although there is this kind of note to bear in mind that people are free to place it anywhere else, because the universal thing is that there are woods almost everywhere. Maybe not in super extreme places, but you can find woods in most places in the world. And I also encourage people to pick, because it's very much folk based, like it's driven by folk stories. So I very much encourage everyone to maybe tap into their own local folklore, and get some inspiration from that. So yeah, it's pretty much like what I've written is mostly inspired by kind of Central European, I would say, like Slavic, Germanic myths and legends. But yeah, there's potential to do much more.
Wow. Let's see where to begin. So why did you want to make a game that's essentially a fairy tale? To me, it seems like a fairy tale simulator. Is that fair?
Yeah, I would say so. Because it's actually this is a weird thing, and I'm not sure if I can even say this, but I probably can because it's probably a common knowledge that for the Ennies, if you are not there, you need to pre-record a few words in case you get the award. So I've done it. It doesn't really matter because not like I'm getting anything, but I've recorded it, and I said that the main inspiration was actually my grandma telling me a lot of folk stories when I was a little boy, and that was very very important for me to kind of tap into that, how to put it, that kind of maybe not narrative, but that kind of way of thinking about storytelling, like driven by that kind of folk energy, if that makes sense. So I always loved storytelling, and I always loved like fairy tale fantasy settings. So I thought it would be really interesting to put my own spin on some of those legends and tales. So I did, and it's a small book, and those adventures also pretty short, hence the nomination for short story. But I've tried to kind of tackle those pretty well known motifs like the basilisk, which is a local legend in Poland, but also in kind of Central Europe. And like as I said, put my own spin on it and to figure out like my own interpretation of what fairy tale could be, and with all the narrative elements of fairy tale, but also filtered by my own kind of view on how to do storytelling. So hopefully I did that decently enough.
Well, let me read from the basilisk adventure, if you don't object.
Yeah,
And I suppose there might be some spoilers here, but there's a lot of adventures in this book. So this is the basilisk, and you start with plot hook. One of the villagers found his wife turned into stone just at the edge of the woods. What the villagers know. The village falls into chaos after a farmer, Lind, discovers his wife, Irina, turned to stone at the edge of the woods. Whispers of the mythical basilisk have spread, and fear grips the village. Some claim Irina must have strayed too close to forbidden grounds, while others insist the creature will come for them unless it is destroyed. Plot twist. The basilisk is indeed real, but it's not a raging, murderous monster. Its sight does not kill or turn people into stone, at least not instantly. It does something much more painful. It forces a person to confront their deepest guilt. If the person can forgive themselves, their burden is lifted and a blessing of some kind is granted. If they spiral into that guilt and lean into their pain too much, their heart, and subsequently their whole body, turns into stone. This happened to Irina, but she had an affair with another woman, Pilla, but when Lind learned of it, he murdered his wife's lover and made Irina watch. Not standing up to him and trying to save Pilla was her deep regret. She heard about the basilisk and that it can grant absolution. Her grief, however, was too strong. Yeah, that's I think that's an amazing twist. Compared to D&D, where it's like, watch out, don't get turned to stone. There's way more going on here.
Yeah, well, that was something I was kind of looking for, because, and obviously, if you have a game like D&D and you want that heroic fantasy, obviously, there are tropes of that could lead into kind of more like exploring like human weaknesses and all that drama as well. But sometimes you just want to smack a basilisk in the head with a big stick, and that's absolutely fine. Here you cannot really do much in terms of combat, because it's not a very combat based game, but instead it's about kind of finding out the truth and dealing with it, because each adventure also have different ways of kind of ending them, and consequences of different choices made throughout and by the end of the adventure. So it's very much kind of exploration of those legends, of those tropes, but from a very kind of humane perspective.
And I should point out this basilisk adventure is 3 pages long, um, and I can see how it would easily fill a night. And I think that, again, one of the interesting things is that tabletop role playing games all have the bones of war games, but I am not certain that the wargaming elements are the most interesting thing about them. Like I know there are people who love leveling up and like hunting for XP and all that, but again, I think you can do that more effectively in computer games at this point, in video games. The thing that D&D and tabletop role playing games do that you can't do in those games is something like this, where it's like, okay, what do you feel guilty about, and how are you going to deal with that? Like at least so far, no computer could really simulate that as effectively as human beings at a table could. Again, I don't know, maybe some AI next week will be able to do this, but I'm skeptical of that. But now I've wandered off into AI, which is not a thing to grumble about here. So yesterday I was talking to a creator in Turkey, and he said that the Turkish tabletop role playing game culture is all centered around universities and clubs in universities. So what's the tabletop role playing game like in Krakow or Poland overall?
Yeah, that's a good question because I don't want to say I don't know, but kind of like I'm not really from that community. Like I stem more from comic book community that I spend a long time with, like being very active, and TTRPG community, especially in Poland, is pretty new to me because I've been playing tabletop role playing games for only like 5 years maybe. And I know that sometimes it's very surprising to people, and like, oh, like if you've never played. And actually, if I could, I absolutely would, but I'm from a, like, maybe not super small but kind of mid-sized city, because I'm not from Krakow. And we've like, I I didn't even know anyone who played tabletop role playing games when I was like a kid or a teenager. And then I had a few friends in my adult life who kind of dabbled with it, but my breakthrough was during the pandemic. I have this friend who's got a YouTube channel with actual plays, great channel. So he showed me the ropes. He also invited me to play, and then I kind of started GMing more because I'm more of a forever GM kind of person. Although tomorrow, no, sorry, not tomorrow. On Sunday, I will play my first game in like 2 years that I'm not going to GM, and I'm going to be just playing, which is fantastic. But the whole community, I feel like now I'm kind of getting to know the community in Poland, and hearing people's stories. So I guess it's got a long tradition, because it kind of gets back, because I also wrote a few articles about that, and there's this fantastic book that basically showcases the whole story of tabletop role-playing games in Poland. So it's like over 40 years of history, honestly. So it started in the 80s, but was really kind of pushed, maybe not into mainstream, but almost in the 90s. And I guess, people who read fantasy, they're also like, okay, so I'm reading fantasy novels, so I'm also playing tabletop role-playing games. I'm playing, like, war games, so I'm leaning into TTRPGs. So it was a community that kind of all came from that love to the fantasy genre, I guess, in the 90s. And now we have so many different clubs, we have so many different groups. It's really, really easy to find a session online, or here in Krakow, we have a few kind of hubs and kind of pubs, cafes that you can go into and land a session like really quick. So it's very active. I wouldn't say it's a huge community, but it's a very active community, and we have so many publishers. So it's really inspiring also to see that small publishers are picking up licenses left and right, and there's so many new books coming up in Polish. That I would never ever expect to be published in Polish, because I thought, oh, it's like a super niche indie thing, but no, like nothing is too niche. People are really curious, and people really want to play new stuff and explore things other than D&D. Fun fact: D&D was published in Polish, the 5th edition, I think, but now Poland cannot get a license, so you're never getting D&D in Polish. Like, I'm not sure if never, but definitely not with the current climate. So we don't have D&D in Polish, and that's, I think that's actually pretty cool, because now people are more open to trying out other stuff. And obviously it's Call of Cthulhu that's kind of mainstream in Poland. We had like a really big crowdfunding for a Polish edition of Call of Cthulhu. It was massive. It was one of the biggest crowdfunding campaigns in any kind of media, in any kind of category in Poland. So yeah, there's a lot of good stuff is happening in Poland. So it's a very vibrant community. But I'm not really kind of from that community, and I don't also do make games in Polish. So it's very, I know it's very weird. It's like I make games in English, and I'm looking for a Polish publisher to get that to Polish audience for me. So
I mean, I forget to use the euro. I know you're in the EU, obviously, but I don't know if you're part of the eurozone.
Yeah, no, we are not.
Okay.
In the eurozone.
I mean, I'm guessing that you can do pretty well if you're running a Kickstarter in USD and then taking it. Is it kroner or zloty?
It's zloty.
Zloty.
Yeah.
Okay. I'm guessing that's a good exchange rate.
Yeah, although it does, like, it's definitely, if I would sell books only in Poland to a similar crowd somehow than abroad, it wouldn't probably be that it wouldn't work that well. It would still have to be a hobby rather than a profession, and now I can do it professionally because I have a global audience. So but my audience is, I would say, like 70% US. But yeah, obviously it's the conversion rates are making it possible, but also there are some costs that's in US dollars or in euro as well. So yeah, it's a tough business, but it's super satisfying business, and I wouldn't change it for a world, especially after spending 7 years in corporations. Then like making that shift into like being my own boss and just making creative stuff for a living. That's like I cannot imagine going back.
Wow. So many. I want to talk about Polish comic books now. But let me resist. What is a better place to take this? I guess we should mention. So you did Pills Full of Gods for Cyborg, and that's available on itch.io, right?
Yep, everything's available out there.
And I was going to say, again, having now read 2 of your works, your English is impeccable. Like you'd never know. I assume it's a second language.
Yeah,
you'd never know from the writing. It's absolutely stunning writing.
Thank you. I just shout out to Ian Servas, who's my editor and proofreader. Yeah, it helps a lot to have because it's not like he doesn't really have that much of work to like correct everything, but kind of sense of kind of natural language, and sometimes distinction between British and American English, because I've worked for British companies for so long, and then kind of I'm writing mainly for the US audience, and sometimes it's just like being non-native speaker is just a bit difficult sometimes, and to kind of not to shift too much between two.
At least Americans like British English, like if it was not to crap on Australians here, but if it was Australian English, we might have more of a problem. We love you, Australia. But typically Britishisms, I think we view as high class or eccentric or sometimes even exotic. But if you're going to have an English accent essentially in your writing, British is not a bad one to have.
True that.
All right, I have to ask. So Polish comic books. What are we talking about? What's going on in what was the Polish comic book scene that you were involved in?
Oh gosh, it's a great scene. I mean, I love Polish authors, and I've written a few comics. I'm actually writing one right now for a Polish publisher. But I was kind of involved from a kind of a journalist side of things for most part. I've helped to organize a few small conventions. So yeah, I love that community, and honestly, because I don't want to kind of delve too deep into that, because it's a TTRPG channel after all, but I'm always trying to get comic book artists that I know and I worked in the past or I just like to do some art for TTRPGs. So a lot like in Corpborg, my first published game, I have a lot of art from people from comic book community. So yeah, so that's that. But yeah, it's a great, again, probably niche and small, similar to like TTRPG community, but also very active, and we have so many great creators, and some of them also broke into the kind of global industry, like Bartosz Tybor, who is a comic book writer like primarily, but now he's doing like cyberpunk edge runners for Netflix, right? He's a kind of lead writer on that.
Wow.
And so yeah, so we have a amazing talent in that regard.
So where is the best place to get your work? Is it itch.io?
Yeah, if you like digital, absolutely. Itch or Drive-Thru RPG. But I think my library is a bit more complete on Edge because I also have some small and kind of free stuff in there. But if people want to get the physical copies, because I always try to have physical copies of everything I do, apologies, then it's if it's the US, then your local game stores should have them, because I have a really good distributor who's Studio 2. So if your local game store doesn't have my stuff, you can ask them to get it, or just get it straight from Studio 2 web store. But if you are anywhere else, you can just get it straight from me. It's shop.heltung.online, and I have a pretty cheap shipping all across the world except the US, because I cannot I cannot physically or legally send things to the US, goods to the US through Polish Post, because they banned that a year ago. And like every other post in the world also did that, but it took like 2 months for them to revert. But Polish Post is like, we don't care. So I cannot ship to the US through Polish Post.
I'm guessing it's not Poland's fault.
I think like initially it wasn't, but now it is, because everyone else, every other country was like, yeah, okay, we are lifting that ban, and Poland's like, whatever.
That sounds like my Polish family. All right, so I guess I should also throw out there, if you're listening to this and you're in Poland, my name is Ben Riggs, and you can get a copy of my book, Slaying the Dragon: A Secret History of Dungeons and Dragons, in Poland, in Polish. Again, my pronunciation, if you were reading the title in Polish but with an English accent, it would be Upadek Smoka, but I have no... Do you have any idea if that pronunciation is correct?
Yeah, it is correct. Upadek Smoka. Perfect.
Wow. Okay, great. So if you're listening to this in Poland, go buy my book, please. It's really good. I assume the Polish translation is brilliant and amazing. Pavel, I cannot say enough how much I appreciate you taking the time to do this.
No, thank you for having me. It was a pleasure, and I could probably spend like 2 more hours just boring you to death with different stuff. So, but thank you.
I'll try and have you on again sometime with somebody else, because normally my setup is I have two designers come on and have the designers talk, and I kind of just record it. I just hang out, and I'm kind of the voice of the audience.
Oh, nice.
So you'd probably really enjoy that. So I'll keep an eye up. Think about who you would want to talk to if you were going to talk to another game designer from anywhere over the world. Let me know, and I'll try and set up a conversation with them.
There are too many of them.
Well, email me a list, and I'll do my best.
Oh, we'll do. Although,
Okay.
can I have a like shameless self promo plug for the end? Because the ENnie, thank you so much. Because the ENnie nominations are now like the voting for ENnies is done over, but now the voting for Crit Awards is open. So if people know my work on Odyssey of the Giant and they appreciate and they like it, I would highly recommend you to vote for Odyssey of the Giant for Crit Awards. But I would also highly recommend to check other nominees or finalists, because there's amazing games in all categories. So I absolutely want everyone to know about all those finalists. Go buy their games, play them, amazing stuff. I'm really humbled and honored to be amongst such a great crowd.
All right, I will put a link in the show notes. So, Pawel, thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Ben. It was a pleasure.